Hebrews. This is our Prophets of Awakening. This is our Thursday night, our Israelite or Women's Advanced Bible Study night, 2nd of June 2022. We'll be dealing with chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4 out of Micah. Try to get some edification out of it. So I'm asking everybody to like, share, and subscribe to Prophets of Awakening channel and hit the notification button if you can. This is a non-Messianic channel. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah. Shalom and welcome to Prophets of Awakening channel. And welcome to our Advanced Israelite Women's Bible Study. We're going to do our moment of silence, our prayer, psalms, and some women's help, and the current events, and then we'll do some meeting note information, and then Q&A. Okay? So with that being said, this moment of silence is in regards to our Creator Yahweh and His Redeemer, the Lord of Hosts, and all that they're doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance from what we got scattered. Oh Lord, we come before Thee at this hour, praising You and honoring You because of Your position, open heaven and upon the earth, the position in which the Creator Yahweh have given unto Thee. Through Your spirit and counsel, Lord, we have awakened. We have awakened to know who we are as a people and who You are as our Savior and Redeemer. We are thankful for all that You have done, and we are eagerly searching Your scriptures out, that we may be in the right place at the right time upon Your arrival to this planet. Lord, we pray that to Thee that You continue to let Your light shine down upon us in spirit and in truth. We love You and we seek You daily, O Lord, and there is none else besides Thee to redeem us. We see You in the affairs of the world, and we faithfully await all Your deliverance. Peace be unto You. Okay. With that being said, we're going to do a Psalms. Let me get it. I'm going to read Psalms 81. It's God's goodness and Israel's waywardness. It's a psalm of Asaph. Sing aloud unto God our strength. Make a joyful noise unto the God of Jacob. Take a song and bring hither the tambourine and the pleasant harp with the pastry. Blow up the trumpet in the new moon, in the time appointed, on our solemn feast day. For this was a statute for Israel and a law of the God of Jacob. This He ordained in Joseph for a testimony when he went out through the land of Egypt, where I had heard a language that I understood not. I removed his shoulder from the burden, his hands were delivered from the pots. Thou callest in trouble, and I delivered thee. I answered thee in the secret place of thunder. I proved thee at the waters of Meribah. Selah, hear, O my people, and I will testify unto thee, O Israel, if thou wilt hearken unto me. There shall no strange God be in thee, neither shall thou worship any strange God. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. But my people would not hearken unto my voice, and Israel would none of me. So I gave them up into their own hearts, lust, and they walked in their own counsel. Oh, that my people had hearkened unto me, and Israel had walked in my ways. I shall soon have subdued their enemies and turned my hand against their adversaries. The haters of the Lord shall have submitted themselves unto Him, but their time should have endured forever. He should have fed them also with the finest of the wheat, and with honey out of a rock should I have satisfied thee. So that's Psalms 81. It's God's goodness and Israel's waywardness. Any comments on that?
Shalom. In this psalm here, he is reminding us again, as he does throughout the Old Testament, that verse 9, Psalm 81 and verse 9, there shall no strange God be in thee, neither shall thou worship any strange God. He tells us that over and over again. And we are reminded of that in Deuteronomy 5 and 7, when Israel is reminded of the commandments, is not to worship any other gods.
Right. Isn't that so? Yeah, I was looking at, it says, verse 10, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it, but my people will not hearken unto my voice. And Israel would none of me. So he says, hearken. 11 says, but my people would not hearken to my voice. So that takes me, and when I read it, it takes me to Exodus 23. And you go to Exodus 23, in verse 20, we're on Mount Sinai, and Yahweh came down on Mount Sinai, and he called Moses up to him. And then in verse 20, 23 and 20, he says, behold, I send an angel before thee, keep thee in the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Beware of him, obey his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. So we see right here on Mount Sinai, the Most High put an angel over Israel. You got an angel that's leading Israel, and Israel is dealing with this angel. And they have to hearken. He told them right here, hearken to this angel voice, because the angel is making all the decisions concerning Israel. Israel been given over to him. And so when you go back to Psalm 81 in verse 11, he says, but my people will not hearken unto my voice, and Israel will none of me. So you see the person they're talking to is Yahweh. This angel, the Lord of hosts. They subject to this angel that's the Most High that gave Israel over to as a nation. This angel's over Israel. Okay, so with that being said, we're gonna open it up for some women's health. See what we got on that.
Okay, shalom. So tonight I'm going to talk about the incredible health benefits of the pomegranate, and also reference some scriptures in the Old Testament in reference to the pomegranate, which I think are some very great scriptures. So the pomegranate is a type of fruit that is between the size of an orange and a grapefruit. They are known for their high antioxidant content, contains nearly half of the required intake of dietary fiber for the average person. It is also a valued source of protein. I did not know that. Pomegranates are full of vitamins and minerals such as B vitamins, vitamin K, calcium, iron, magnesium, and potassium. Some pomegranate benefits are it helps protect your skin, it keeps it youthful, it prevents inflammation, protects against cancer, especially breast cancer, protects against heart disease, protects against eye problems, also prevents buildup of plaque on the teeth. Beneficial for fighting bacterial and fungal infections, and it supports good digestion. Okay. Pomegranates are one of the most prominent fruits mentioned in the Old Testament as a special product of the land of Israel, and you can find that in Deuteronomy 8, verse 8. God has provided a good land, and I am going to read that verse. This is Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 8. God has provided a good land. Verse 8, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of oil, olive, and honey. Also, you can find it in Exodus chapter 28, verses 33 through 34, the blue robe of Ephod. It is on the hem. You shall make pomegranates of blue and purple and scarlet yarns around the hem with bells of gold between them, a golden bell and a pomegranate, a golden bell and a pomegranate around the hem of the robe. Also, Aaron was to wear this robe when he goes into the holy place before the Lord, and that's in Exodus 28 and 35. You can also find it in Numbers chapter 13, verse 23, when the Israelite spies they brought back this fruit, which was evidence of the land of fruitfulness,
Go ahead.
proving God's abundant provision and desire to bless his people. You can also find it in 1 Kings chapter 17, verses 18 through 22. A house for Solomon, when it was built, the two brass pillars, it was decorated with the shape of hundreds of pomegranates. It was also mentioned in Song of Solomon, the maiden's beauty. That was the health benefits of the pomegranate.
Okay. Appreciate that. Yeah, that's some good information. Okay. So with that being said, I was going to go to our current events. Anybody got any current events?
I just want to mention about the storms that are taking place here a lot. This morning in San Francisco, they had a 4.1 earthquake magnitude that hit in San Francisco. So not only is the bad weather on the coming from the Mexico way, it's hitting us everywhere.
Oh yeah,
And
right.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and it's happening in areas that is normally not happening in.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that and they already warned us about it too. It's like it's an uptick in 5% uptick or 5-degree uptick in the temperature that's gonna be out this summer. And
Right,
last
right,
summer was already bad, so you know what come behind that? Hurricane season.
right. And they had already predicted that Texas was going to be hit with a lot of tornadoes this year
Right.
already.
Yes. Yeah, that heat off the chart. Yeah, son. Yeah, I want this year. I mean, I don't know what they gonna do with anybody else, but they got a tour, like a what they call that HD, high definition tour in Jerusalem to the streets of Jerusalem and understanding what we know about that them ain't the real people and all that. I mean, we're gonna check it out. I mean, and I'll get some feedback from people that after we watch it. I was like, wow, it's crazy. Oh, big lie. Let me get it.
we all forget to change our
So what you think about that?
I don't know. Was there supposed to be volume to the video?
No.
Okay.
They're just going through Jerusalem.
Got you.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like, they so, like I said, to watch that and then knowing that how all that came about, all that. Is that something?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So, with that being said, I'm gonna play this right here.
A farm in China. This is a McDonald's in New York. This is an apartment complex in Mumbai. And this is a skyscraper in London. What do all of these things have in common? Well, as it turns out, all of these places' successes or failures, economic booms or collapses, and even population explosions or famines might soon be decided by the nation of Morocco. But probably not for the reasons that you might think. In fact, this future economic trajectory was likely decided by a tiny little creature just a couple centuries ago. This is a bat. In the modern world, we view bats as things that both control insect populations, as well as creatures that spread rare diseases. But a few hundred years ago, bats were discovered to do something else. Something miraculous that would shape our world forever without most people realizing it. In 1802, the European explorer Alexander von Humboldt was traveling through the Peruvian lands when he discovered something strange. You see, the Peruvian lands did not seem like they were suitable for large-scale agriculture, yet the Peruvian fields were filled with lush and healthy-looking crops. And he soon discovered that the Peruvian people had been collecting a substance called guano, which is the excretion of bats and some seabirds, and they were using this by spreading it along their crops for the previous several thousand years. So Alexander von Humboldt ended up bringing this knowledge of guano significantly increasing food production back to Europe, where soon that knowledge would become a key point of interest to the Western world. Because soon after the discovery of guano, food production boomed in the United States and Europe. And all of a sudden, these Western nations went from having a small but significant shortage of food to having a massive surplus of food, which was more than enough to feed all of its citizens and then some. In fact, guano's impact on boosting food production became so important that several wars were fought over guano, such as the Chincha Islands War of 1864 and the War of the Pacific in 1879. The United States actually became so enamored with guano that it passed the Guano Islands Act, which allowed any American citizen to claim and annex any island that had any substantial amount of guano on it. And well, they did lay claim to roughly 70 of these islands, most of which were in the Pacific Ocean. Now, you see, guano became so important to the economic, population, and industrial growth of the Western world that it arguably became the most vital resource in the entire world. However, in 1913, Fritz Haber would discover a way to synthesize an artificial version of guano that we today call fertilizer. And it was this one event, the discovery of fertilizer, that would go on to be known as the detonator for the population explosion of the world. Soon after, starvation in nations that used fertilizer became rare. The world's population grew from 1.6 billion to 7.7 billion over the next 100 years. Food production and crop yields immediately doubled in many areas that used fertilizer. Nations with typically unsuitable locations to grow food, like Northern European countries such as Norway, all of a sudden were able to sustainably grow crops in more areas. And well, eventually every single country's economic and population growth was indirectly caused by the food surplus created from fertilizer. In fact, it is estimated that roughly 50% of all nitrogen in your body is directly from fertilizer that farms use to grow food. And well, that brings us to today. All of this seems great so far. Fertilizer has allowed many countries to grow and in some cases become superpowers of the world, where nearly all of their citizens are well fed and have a very little food insecurity. But in 2010, a few scientists began to notice something a little bit worrying. Fertilizer, the compound responsible for a ton of the growth that humanity has seen over the last 2 centuries, might actually be running out. That's because that our fertilizer that has been used to grow our entire civilization over the last couple hundred years needs 3 things. One of which is a nitrogen-based compound, the second of which is a phosphate, and the third of which is a potassium-based compound. And 2 of these are compounds that we cannot create from scratch. And those compounds are phosphate and potassium, or in its raw form, potash. You see, potash is a non-renewable resource that is largely controlled by just 4 countries. Canada is by far the world's largest producer of potash, with over 1/3 of the world's potash coming from Canada. Russia, Belarus, and China produce between 10 and 20% of the world's potash each, and every other nation in the world combined produces only about 19% of the world's potash. And let's think about that for a second. Essentially, 4 countries control one ingredient that will dictate who is or isn't allowed to produce fertilizer. And because potash resources are being depleted in these countries, potash will become a more valuable resource as the world's population continues to grow and the food requirements for the world also grow. Now, the world isn't likely going to go through a potash shortage in the next 100 years or so. In fact, our potash reserves could last for several hundred years before we see any shortages. However, phosphate, one of those 3 key ingredients, is a completely different case. You see, since 2010, there's been a hotly contested debate about when, not if, the world will run out of rock phosphate. The United States Geological Survey estimated that we currently have 260 years worth of phosphate left in the earth, assuming that the population doesn't grow at all. And assuming the population continues to grow at a similar rate at what it is today, we have roughly just over 100 years of phosphate left in the earth. However, those are just estimates. That number could be much lower or much higher. But really, we don't even need to know when the world will run out of phosphate, because we are already seeing shortages. And also, we are seeing countries take drastic economic policies to protect their own phosphate. For example, phosphate prices have increased by roughly 80% since early 2020. In September of 2021, China banned exporting of any of its own phosphate in hopes of assuring that it had enough phosphate to produce enough fertilizer to grow its own food for the foreseeable future. But there is one key aspect that I have left out until this point, and that is this. You see, China has the 2nd largest phosphate reserves in the world, as it owns roughly 5% of the world's phosphate. And keep in mind that is 2nd on this list, and it is already concerned about its phosphate supply. Syria has the third largest amount of phosphate at 3%, Algeria is next at just under 3%, and the rest of the world has only 2% or less each per country in terms of the world's phosphate reserves. But then at number 1, there is the country of Morocco. You see, Morocco owns a whopping 70% of the world's phosphate. And let's think about that for a second. One nation owns 70% of a resource that can dictate which other nations will be able to feed their populations. In fact, within the next several decades, the world's food supply could become dependent upon whoever Morocco chooses to trade with or who they choose not to trade with. Or maybe just simply, Morocco will just sell off the phosphate to the highest bidder. There is also the potential for international conflict or cooperation, as that has been seen throughout history with any valuable resource. And this would be far from the first time that we have seen wars started or partnerships enacted that revolved around the acquisition of fertilizer. In fact, increasingly every single year, large populous countries like India, Mexico, and Brazil are becoming even more reliant upon Moroccan phosphate for their agricultural industries. And other nations like the United States have been placing tariffs on Moroccan phosphate and going in the other direction. Now, it is worth mentioning that peak phosphorus, as some are calling this predicament, may not occur as soon as we think. As mentioned earlier, estimates range from seeing significant shortages relatively soon to seeing shortages that occur in several hundred years from now. But this peak phosphorus mentality is actually quite similar to what people were saying about oil in the 1950s. Because back then, many scientists assumed that oil production and reserves would peak around the year 1970. Yet, since then, the world has discovered substantially more oil in places like Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, Norway, Iran, and China. There was also technological innovations for oil, like fracking, which allowed the extraction of oil in deposits that were previously seen as unextractable because of how difficult it was to, well, extract the oil. All this means is that even though it is predicted that rock phosphates will become significantly depleted over the next several decades, we can't really know for sure. Also, scientists have begun genetically engineering plants to absorb significantly more phosphorus in natural soil to try and avoid the reliance on fertilizer. And so far, those experiments have been minor successes. But at the end of the day, the entire world might be for its fertilizer, something that has never been seen before in the history of the world. All of those old superpowers that owned a large percentage of the world's resources, like the United States had with oil over 100 years ago, the British Empire had with metals in the early 19th century, the Dutch East India Company of the 1600s, or the Hudson's Bay Company in the late 1600s, all of those monopolies could pale in comparison to Morocco's monopoly on phosphate and the world's fertilizer. It is also worth noting that part of Morocco's phosphate reserves are currently in an occupation zone in the Western Sahara, meaning that a lot of those deposits are already in a conflict zone, which could be a sign of things to come. Now, if you enjoyed
Okay, any comments? No comments?
I just have a question about that because they was talking about Canada, right?
Right.
Being one of the, I guess, biggest producers of that. So, with the way it's going with diesel and, even with the railway traffic, pretty much coming to a halt and everything happening, do you feel like that's going to really hurt us when it comes to planting things?
Well,
Even, I'm saying your own gardens, because that means fertilizer is going to go up.
Right, but we don't necessarily need fertilizer. You it comes in handy, but you can do it without it. Like like I said about compost. They got a system called compost. You can all the green stuff and limbs and stuff that you get around your house. You normally throw them away or put them in the garbage can, but you can put all that stuff in a certain area and do it in a year, and it just start decomposing, and it turns into all it's organic. And then so by the time next planting season come around, you take that stuff and it's like fertilizer. You put it on your put it in your garden, in your beds. It helps in when you plant your fruits and vegetables and plant your garden.
Right. And with the war going on in between Ukraine and Russia, we're finding out that we get a lot of stuff from them also.
Right.
That I mean, I didn't know if anybody else knew that, but I didn't know that they supplied us with that much stuff.
Right, exactly. Well, it's when you're looking at it from a biblical perspective, like he said, he's gonna make them look like idiots when it's all said and done, because of those are European nations that's dependent on Russia. You know what I'm saying? So when you go and read, which I keep on reiterating and bringing it up, you go to Isaiah chapter 60. Let me get it. Isaiah chapter 60 says, arise and shine, for thy light is come. Verse 1, Isaiah 60. Arise and shine, for thy light is come. The glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, darkness shall cover the whole earth, gross darkness the people. But the Lord shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. That's upon the Israelites. And up until this point, we know we under the curses. Then here you go. 3. The Gentiles shall come to thy light, kings to the brightness of thy rising. It's Japhet, Europe, the Gentiles. 4. Lift up thine eyes round about and see, and all they that gather themselves together, they come to thee. Thy sons shall come from afar, and thy daughters shall be nursed upon thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee, unto Israel. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. And all these are here. We're looking right at it. So you even go back to when I see Morocco, when I hear Morocco, first thing I think about is I can't think his name. It's slipping right on the tip of my tongue. I think of the guy that came with all the gold, throwing it all over the place. Mansa Musa. He came on the scene. He came out of that region, Morocco, Timbuktu area, and he came on the scene with all that gold and throwing it all over the place. And so that's what brought the European to Africa. That's what triggered out the transatlantic slave trade right there. So look where we at. We right back on there. Now we back there again. Morocco got 80-some% of phosphate. So what you're looking at is, the transfer of power. It's being transferred back. Yeah. Ain't that something?
Yes.
That's just one example. Like I said, it's a coincidence that it's not a coincidence that you got a person like Putin. He got that much control over the European Japhet, the Gentile nations. And he being used. It's like the Most High used Nebuchadnezzar, and he used Cyrus. There's nothing new under the sun. Like I said, the forces of the Gentiles being converted back to us. And also notice that where that phosphate is at, can't say it right, phosphorus, where it's at, it's in Sahara Desert. Ain't that something?
Right.
And when you understand the route that we took as Israelites, and we left when we left Israel, when we was ran out by Antioch Epiphanes, they went up because they was told that not to go to Egypt no more. So they couldn't go in that region where Egypt was at. So they came up across the top of Africa, came over to what's so-called Assyrians. That's where Assyrians is. They trying to tell you Assyrians is over here in America, but Assyrians is a place up at the top of Africa. And they stayed there for the longest because of the boundaries of the Sahara Desert and the weather and the sand and all that. So they stayed there for a while. And finally they started those caravans that was coming down through there in the same phosphorus that they've been transporting all this time. They started trickling down through the Sahara, and that's how they ended up on the West Coast, those Israelite tribes. And so that's what that's all about. And it's not a coincidence now. We back there again. This country called Morocco got almost over 80% of the one of the most valuable resources that the world needs, especially the West. That's him at work. Yeah. Okay. Any comments on that? Everybody good? Okay. We're gonna go to this need to know information.
More in depth now about what is actually unfolding in that country in this next phase of the war. And I want to start with some fakery as we talk about Ukraine now, because there's been a lot of fake news stories coming out of this war. There's a lot of propaganda, and you're starting to see the propaganda starting to fracture a little bit. Here's Glenn Greenwald talking about, sorry, I got to get this. Here it is. Here's Glenn Greenwald. Western media all but refused to acknowledge Russian advances for the first 3 months of this war, bombarding everyone with a relentless narrative about feisty Ukrainians kicking their ass. Now reality is emerging, as it eventually does with war. The propaganda is slowly eroding. So what are we talking about? Well, there are a couple stories over the past few days that I thought were hilarious. A few weeks ago, I don't know if you recall this story. It was plastered a lot over the Western media. You can take my laptop here. Russian troops pushed back to the border. This was a story that was carried on Al Jazeera and other Western media outlets. I think Reuters carried it as well. Russian troops pushed back to the border, Ukraine. If confirmed, it would suggest a counteroffensive by Ukrainian soldiers having increasing success in expelling Russian forces from the northeast. Now, I was digging for this video tonight, and I couldn't find it on the fly. I had it, and I couldn't find it through my archives. But it showed basically Ukrainian troops. They posted it on Facebook initially, and it was near Kharkiv. And they basically pushed Russian forces back and advanced as far as the border with Russia. That's what they were saying. And it basically showed them out in the woods, sort of like planting the Ukrainian flag at the border, basically saying, here we are, like we got this border post. We've pushed the Russians back. Not so fast. Because a lot of people, even Larry Johnson, who we interviewed here on the show, he's like, this was ridiculous. He's like, you could have literally been out in your backyard taking that video and posting it. But apparently this came from the Ukrainian government that was asking for more of these like propaganda videos to put out on social media. So now we know the guy that was the head of the SBU in Kharkov, this comes to us from Levy Godman over on Twitter. She posted this. The head of the SBU of Kharkov, who was fired yesterday, has already started to talk. In mid-May, Ukrainian channels distributed a video showing the military personnel of the armed forces of Ukraine going to the Russian border and setting up a border post. Well, even then, there were suggestions that the video was staged. And today, this was officially confirmed by the ex-head of the Kharkiv Regional Department of the SBU, who recently was fired after a conflict with Zelensky. According to him, personnel of the 227th Battalion of the 127th Brigade of the Defense were involved in filming of this performance for the president. The recording did not go according to plan. A battle began during which the Ukrainian fighters had to shamefully throw the installed pole that they put with the flag, and they had to run away. The losses of the armed forces of Ukraine amounted to 4 people killed, 3 wounded. I mean, this is just one simple example, but this just goes to show you the level of propaganda that the Western media just soaked up, right? Oh my God, they took over a border post.
Yeah.
And as Larry Johnson pointed out, well, where's the building? Where's the border building? The facility? You know, you cross the border, they got like a guard gate and stuff.
Well, the photo could be geotagged and show that we're on the border. You get no other evidence.
There's nothing there.
That.
Like, oh, here we are in the woods. Here's a pole. Here's my Ukrainian flag.
But that's not funny because according to that report, 3 or 4 people were killed because of this shenanigan.
Yeah, because of this propaganda.
Can shenanigan be singular?
I think you can have a shenanigan. I think, but because shenanigans.
I think it's still shenanigans. I think that's just.
What if you only pulled one shenanigan?
I want to show you, this was in the Times of London today. The Times, this is probably my favorite headline. I think this is probably my favorite headline of the year. This is probably my favorite headline of the year. Azov Battalion drops neo-Nazi symbol exploited by Russian propagandists. So just I want you to read that a couple of times. Just read it along with me and let it like soak in. They drop this symbol exploited by Russian propagandists. So the idea is, as Caitlin Johnstone points out, that it's our fault. Like it's our fault for
misinterpreting the sun signal symbol on the Azov Brigade's logo.
Like when we were in World War II, like that symbol, you know, the famous symbol, we don't even want to use the name here because God knows what YouTube does with that kind of stuff, right? When we say those names, like that symbol was misinterpreted. Like, I'm sorry. It's you stupid West.
Okay. So that ain't nothing new right there. Like I was saying, this constantly happening every day to us, you know what I'm saying? It's constantly happening every day because we can see how that, even, it's long ago, what they did with the New Testament. They giving you stuff and got you thinking it's truth, but it ain't no truth in it at all. And I know it never did register with me that those people was doing what they said they was doing to the Russian army. It just didn't make no sense to me. So, and sure enough, here we go. We find out that that was all lies. They was lying about all that. You know what I'm saying? Ain't that something? Yeah, they got to throw the pole down and take off running because they getting ready to get, and all 4 of them got killed. Ain't that something? Okay. So with that being said, I was going to open it up for some Q&A, questions and comments. And anybody got anything they want to bring up that we've been talking about during the week, or they came across on YouTube or on another platform? Okay. Everybody good? Well, I was talking last night. What you got?
Once you get finished with that, I do want to ask you a question about Isaiah 60 that you were reading. The Gentiles are drawn to the Israel's light. I was in the class, not in a class, in the clubhouse room last week, and this was a topic that they were sort of talking about.
Right.
And they were saying that because of this scripture here, that is why they see that the Gentiles are gonna, come together with us. We're gonna be as one together because of this scripture. So when you get a chance, can you break this down? Whatever you get finished talking about, whatever you were talking about.
Yeah. Just all it is when you understand that if you go to Jubilees, it tells you all through the book of Jubilees and Joshua that Japhet is our enemies, the Gentiles.
Right.
And so So when you go to Genesis chapter 10,
What chapter was that?
Genesis chapter 10.
Okay.
Let me get it. Chapter 10, verse 1 says, Now these are the generations of Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. Then it says, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Midian, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus, and the sons of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Rephaim, Tamagog, and the sons of Javan, Elishah, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dedom. By these are the isles of the Gentiles divided. So these people right here is the Gentile. Ain't nobody else. Ain't no other nations Gentiles. These are Gentiles. Right here. Genesis chapter 10, verses 1 through 5. These are Gentiles. Now we know that Japhet is Gentiles. And that also that means our Japhet is all the European nations. They're Gentiles. And he tells you in Jubilees and all over the place that the Gentiles is our enemies. So with that understanding, they understand that the Gentiles is our enemies, we go to, let me hit this right quick. Shalom, bro. So you go and you see Isaiah chapter 60. So he said we're going to be scattered he scattered us amongst Judah, Benjamin, Levi, amongst our enemies. And we looking at it today, we among the Gentiles. So let's tell you that's our enemies. We've been scattered amongst our enemies. So with all that information, understanding that, you go to Genesis, Isaiah 60. Arise and shine, for thy light is come, and thy glory. Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the whole earth, gross darkness to people. That's everybody else. But the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles, we already know what's up with them. That's our enemies. He tell you that all through scriptures. Don't let your sons marry their daughters, right? And don't let your daughters marry their sons. It says, and the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about and see all they that gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from afar, and thy daughters shall be nursed upon at thy side. Then thou shalt see and flow together, and thine heart shall fear and be enlarged, because the abundance of the Gentiles. It said, so because the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. The forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. So he's taking back from our enemies what he had gave to them earlier. And so what else they gonna do? They ain't got everything they had would have been taken away. Same thing with us. So they can't do nothing but they subject to us. But they don't. That's not saying that he he bringing them in.
Right, he's bringing them together, right, with us, right.
He's subduing them. That's what he's doing. I mean, then like I said, where else you gonna go? Especially with all the lies you've been told.
Right, and that goes back to what I was saying last night, when you have a lot of people that is just reading the scriptures, but they're not getting an understanding
exactly
of it.
Right. So I'm gonna read that couple out of here. Okay. I'm in the book of Jubilees, and it says, okay. And that's, like I said, that's the reason why these books is not in here. It says, and I'm in Jubilees chapter 1. And it says in verse 8, they will eat and be satisfied, and they will turn to strange gods, to gods that cannot deliver them from any of their tribulations. And this witness shall be heard, or a witness against them. They will forget all my commandments. Check this out. Talking about Israel, Moses telling them this. They will forget all my commandments, even all that I commanded them, and they will walk in the ways of the Gentiles. And after their uncleanness, and after their shame, and will serve their gods. That's where we at. And these will prove to be an offense and a tribulation and a sickness. See that? And a trap. See that? Then you go on down and it says, verse 12, I will send witnesses to them that I may testify against them, but they will not hear. They will kill the witnesses, and they will persecute those who seek the law, and they will abolish and change everything, this Gentiles, in the law, so as to work evil before my eyes, right? Then it says, I will send witnesses, 13, I will hide my face from them, and I will deliver them into the hands of the Gentiles, and they will be captured like prey for their eating, and I will remove them from out of the land, and I will scatter them among the Gentiles, right? So, trying a couple more verses. So, like I said before, they don't sound like to me. He got no. He's trying to bring them into nowhere. You know, so no more place. Yeah. It says, this is chapter 30 of Jubilees. If there's any man in Israel who wishes to give his daughter or his sister to any man who is of the offspring of the Gentiles, he shall surely die. They shall stone him, for he has committed shame in Israel. They shall burn the woman with fire, because she has disowned the name of the house of her father, and she shall be rooted out of Israel. And then it says 9, for it has been ordained and written in the heavenly tablets regarding all the offspring of Israel, he who defiles it shall surely die. He shall be killed by stoning. There is no limit. Here you go. There is no limit of days for this law. There is no remission and no atonement. The man who has defiled his daughter shall be rooted out from every corner of all Israel, because he has given his offspring to Moloch, a pagan god, and worship, which involved the burning of a child alive, and committed impurities and defiled his child. Moses commanded the children of Israel, exhorted them not to give their daughters to the Gentiles, not to take their sons or take for their sons any of the daughters of the Gentiles, for this is abominable before the Lord. Okay, so when you get to understanding all that, then chapter 60 is Isaiah plain.
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. So yeah. So with that being said, I was dealing with something. Let's see something right quick. Okay. Yeah. I was dealing with last night on Clubhouse, on our non-messianic conversation. I was dealing with the fact about Cain, and the lady was dealing with the book of Adam and Eve. And so I want to play this, and then I was trying to find something that the serpent Lucifer had said to Cain, and put it in context. So here you go, right here. Let me get it.
Created many doctrines to mislead us and to cause a separation between us and the Most High. Satan persecuted Adam and Eve in and out of the garden. He did the same to their children and to all of Adam's seeds. Satan is a hater of all things good, and he wants this realm for himself. He has waged war with Adam and his seed. But Satan, the hater of all good, thought within himself, whereas God has promised salvation to Adam by covenant, and that he would deliver him out of all the hardship that have befallen him, but has not promised me by covenant, and will not deliver me out of my hardship. Nay, since he has promised him that he should make him and his seed dwell in the kingdom in which I once was, I will kill Adam. The earth shall be rid of him, and shall be left to me alone, so that when he is dead, he may not have any seed left to inherit the kingdom that shall remain my own realm. God will then be in want of me, and he will restore me to it with my hosts.
So notice on that, it's been taken out. Scriptures, this book of Adam and Eve. So what we're looking at is an angelic being talking. And like I was saying before, it's two beings in the garden. It's Michael and Satan. Lucifer, Samuel is his name. So he's just talking right there, and he keeps saying, in the end, I was kicked out because he started trying to lift himself up above the Most High. He was the high priest. So that means he's over the priesthood. So that host that he had, that third angel was kicked out with him, was part of the priesthood that was in heaven. Fiery flying serpents. So he was kicked out, and he said that he persecuted Adam, and he kept mentioning about how the Most High talked to him and I this and I that, and he says that in the very end, after he defamed Adam, the Most High ain't gonna have no other choice but to return to him his host, right? So let's look at that. So it's no different than what I'm gonna read right here. We know I'm showing you it ain't Yahweh talking, just like it ain't him right there. That's Satan talking, an angel talking. So I'm in Isaiah 43. Like I said, two beings in the garden, right? One of them is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's the angel, the Most High angel Michael, the first angel he created, right-hand man, and Satan came in the garden. He had been kicked out of heaven, and when they returned to the earth, shining light back on the earth, and came to the garden, that's when he returned to the earth. So it says in Isaiah 43, and picking up at verse 10. So it says, "Ye are my witnesses, says the Lord, and my servant whom I have chosen, that ye may know and believe me and understand that I am he." See, he talking the same way Lucifer was talking. Before me, there was no God form, there was no El form, no angel form. Neither shall there be after me. I am the Lord. Besides me, there is no Savior. So we see right here, same content. See, just like he was just talking to Adam, saying that I this and I that, and when that's all over and said and done, he's gonna return to me and he's gonna return back to me and lift me back up and give me my host back. Well, we know a war was in heaven when Lucifer his pride started taking over. And so a war was in heaven between Satan and Michael. And Michael prevailed and kicked him out. The war that was in heaven wasn't between Satan and Yahweh. It was between Satan and Lucifer. Between Lucifer and Michael. Michael kicked him out. So what the point I'm showing you is that these angelic beings is talking. And he's telling you right here, like I said, in verse 12, he says, I have declared, I have saved, and it says, I have saved, and I have showed when there was no strange God among you, these angels. No strange angel among you. Therefore, ye are my witnesses, said the Lord, that I am God. Right? And yea, before the day was, I am he, and there is none that can deliver out of my hand. I work, and who shall let? So he's not trying to be creative. He's telling you that he's the one that saves. He's the one that delivers Israel. He's the one that went to Egypt and got Israel out of Egypt, delivered Israel out of Egypt, and brought them to his mountain, Mount Zion. And we like I said, we keep going. We go to Exodus 23 and 20 all the time, and it tells you that Yahweh appointed an angel over them. He told Moses. I'm putting this angel over you. Listen to him. Obey his voice. He's going to lead you into the promised land. And don't provoke him, because he overseeing. He's the one that's going to deal with you. He's the one that's going to bring judgment on you if you don't do the right thing, if you don't hearken to him. And it's right here in Deuteronomy. I'm gonna get off of that. So in Deuteronomy 28, 28 and 15, it says, well, like I said, precept upon precept. Deuteronomy 20 and 23 told you, the Creator told them, obey this angel, provoke him not. He will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. He says, obey him, listen to his voice, hearken unto his voice. And we in Deuteronomy 28 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. This ain't Yahweh, it's the angel. He says, the Lord thy God, to observe all his commandments and his statutes, which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And we know that happened. We wasn't obeying him. The angel, it's the angel they're dealing with. And they continue to rebel against him. This angel is over Israel. He inherited Israel, and he has Yahweh's name in him. Michael El means he who is like Yahweh. That's one of the meanings. So I was trying to find that part of the clip last night, but it kept getting eluding me. So I found it, and I was just shining a light on that. Or anybody got any comments on that? Okay. So with that being said, we're gonna go into the Bible discussion. I'm in Micah. I'm gonna read Micah chapter 1. They're short chapters, so I'm gonna read 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Okay. It's dealing with the judgment that's on Israel. Like I said, just so we can just jump right off what I just showed you. If it's judgment on Israel, it's not Yahweh that's doing it. It's the Lord of hosts doing it. He the one to overseeing. He the one bringing the judgment. So let's pick it up. Micah chapter 1. The word of the Lord that came to Micah, Marushite, in the days of Jotham, Ahaz, Hezekiah, kings of Judah, which he saw concerning Samaria and Jerusalem. Hear all you people, hearken, O earth, and all that therein, and let the Lord God be a witness against you, Lord, from his holy temple. For behold, the Lord cometh forth out of his place, and will come down and tread upon the high places of the earth, and the mountains shall be molten under him, and the valleys shall be cleft as wax before fire, and as waters that are poured down a steep place. For the transgression of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel, which is the transgressions of Jacob. It is not Samaria. Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? Therefore will I make Samaria as a heap of a field, and as a planting of a vineyard, and I will pour down the stones thereof into the valley, and I will discover the foundation thereof. So we're gonna go back to verse 5. I just read Exodus 23 and 20, right? Who's dealing with sin and who's over it. And verse 5 says, for the transgressions of Jacob is all this, and for the sins of the house of Israel. What is the transgression of Jacob? Is it not Samaria? And what are the high places of Judah? Are they not Jerusalem? So we see right here, Yahweh the point of angel over there, and his angel dealing with the sin. The angel is the judge, it ain't Yahweh. So anyway, 7, and all the graven images thereof shall be beaten to pieces, and all the hires thereof shall be burned with the fire, and all the idols thereof will I lay desolate. For she gathered it of the hire of a harlot, and they shall return to the hire of a harlot. Therefore I will wail and howl, and I will go stripped and naked, and I will make a wailing like the dragons and mourning as the owl, for her wound is incurable. For it is come unto Judah. He is come up unto the gate of my people, even to Jerusalem. Declare ye it not in Gath, weep ye not at all in the houses of Aphara. Roll thyself in the dust. Pass ye away, thou inhabitants of Sapphire, having thy shame naked. The inhabitants of Zion, come not forth in the morning at Bethazel. He shall receive of you his standings. For the inhabitants of Maroth waited carefully for good, but evil came down from the Lord unto the gates of Jerusalem. Thou, O thou inhabitants of Lankish, bind the chariots to the swift beast. She is the beginning of the sin of the daughters of Zion, for the transgression of Israel were found in thee. So let's look at verse 13. It says, O thou inhabitants of Lankish. So just for GP, Lankish, that's a city in Israel. Matter of fact, Lankish is the city of kings. So we know the first two kings was David and Solomon. But then Solomon got on the throne, and then Solomon is pretty much behind the building of Lankish, and then from there, all the kings are buried in Lankish in that area. So, and then anytime an embassy or a group of people came from another country to come into Israel to see the king, they would meet them in Lankish. So, yeah, so when you see that word, I was just giving you some background information on it, so you understand what it is. 14, therefore shall thou give presents to Merath Gath, the houses of Exib shall be a lie to the kings of Israel. These two gods or idols in Israel. Yet will I bring an hire unto thee, O inhabitants of Marshal, and I shall come unto Adullam, the glory of Israel, make the ball and the pole thee for the delicate children, and enlarge thy boldness as the eagle, for they are gone into the captivity from thee. Okay. Chapter 2. Woe to the oppressors of the poor. Woe to them that devise iniquity and work evil upon their beds. When the morning is light, they practice it, because it is in the power of their hand, and they covet fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away, till they oppress a man and his house, even a man and his heritage. Therefore, thus saith the Lord, behold, against this family do I devise an evil, for which they shall not remove your necks, neither shall ye go haughtily, for this time is evil. That day shall one take up a parable against you, and lament with a doleful lamentation, and shall say, we be utterly spoiled. Ye have changed the portion of my people. How much he removed is from me. Turning away, ye have divided our fields. Therefore, thou shalt have none that shall cast the cord by a lot in the congregation of the Lord. Prophesy ye not, say they to them that prophesy, they shall not prophesy to them, that they shall not take shame. O thou that are named the house of Jacob, is the spirit of the Lord straightened? Are these, says, are these his doings? Do not my word do good to him that walketh uprightly? Even of late, my people is risen up as an enemy. Ye pull out the robe with the garment, and them that pass by securely as men averse from war. The women of my people have ye cast out from their pleasant houses, from their children have ye taken away by glory forever. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. If a man walking in the spirit and falsehood do lie, saying, I will prophesy unto thee of wine and of strong drink, ye shall even be the prophet of this. He shall even be the prophet of this people. Okay, I will surely assemble Jacob all of thee. I will surely gather the remnant of Israel. I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, as a flock in the midst of their fold. They shall make great noise by reason of the multitude of men. The breaker is come up before them. They are broken up and have passed through the gate and are gone out by it, and their king shall pass before them, and the Lord on the head of them. Okay, that was chapter 2. This is chapter 3 of Micah. Judgment on Israel's leaders. And I said, hear, I pray you, O heads of Jacob, and ye princes of the house of Israel. Is it not for you to know judgment? Who hate the good and love the evil, who pluck off their skin from off them and their flesh from off their bones, who also eat the flesh of my people and flay their skin from off them, and they break their bones and chop them in pieces as for the pot and as for flesh within the cauldron. Then shall they cry unto the Lord, but he will not hear them. He will even hide his face from them at that time, as they have behaved themselves ill in their doing. Thus says the Lord concerning the prophets that make my people err, that bite with their teeth and cry, peace, and he that putteth not into their mouths, they even prepare war against him. Therefore night shall be unto you, that ye shall not have a vision, and ye shall be dark unto you, that ye shall not divine, and the sun shall go down over thy prophets, and the day shall be dark over them. Then shall the seers be ashamed, and the diviners confronted. Yea, they shall all cover their lips, for there is no answer of God. But truly I am full of power by the Spirit of the Lord, and of judgment and of might, to declare unto Jacob his transgressions, and to Israel his sin. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and the princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment and pervert all iniquity. They build up Zion with blood, and Jerusalem with iniquity. The heads of their the heads thereof judge for the war, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountains of the house of as the high places of the forest. So when you read, we in the exact same predicament right now. When you read, starting at verse 9, it says, Micah chapter 3, verse 9. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob, and the princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment, right? That's where we are today. They abhor judgment and pervert all equity. They build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. The heads thereof judge for reward. That's what's going on now. And the priests thereof teach for hire, right? And the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps, and the mountains of the house of the high places of the Lord. So we see what happened to these people right here. So we're supposed to be expecting the same thing can happen now, because they're doing the same thing. Exact same thing. Okay. So I'm gonna read chapter 4. Anybody got a comment so far or questions? Okay. This is chapter 4. This is my last chapter I'm gonna read. It says, but in the last days it shall come to pass that the mountains of the house of the Lord shall be established in the top of the mountain, and it shall be exalted above the hills, and people shall flow unto it. Many nations shall come and say, come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, and to the house of God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and he will walk in his path, for the law shall go forth of Zion and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem, right? And he shall judge among many people and rebuke strong nations afar off. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. But they shall sit every man under his vine and under his fig tree. None shall make them afraid, for the mouth of the Lord of hosts has spoken it. For all the people will walk, everyone in the name of his God, and we will walk in the name of the Lord our God forever and ever. In that day, said the Lord, I will assemble her that halted, and I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted. And I will make her that halted a remnant, and her that was cast afar off a strong nation as us. And the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion, from henceforth, even and forever. Then verse 8, Micah 4 and 8. O thou, O flock, and thou, O flock of the flock, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, under thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Zion. So this first dominion is David. So he's telling you right here in verse 8, although he just scattered us, he's gonna bring a remnant back. And the remnant gonna have a head over. And it says, and thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, that's the remnant, under thee shall it come, even the first dominion, is David. And the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. Now here you go. This is how we know it's David. Now, why doest thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pains have taken thee as a woman in travail. So he says, why you whining? You know, well, I just told you I'm gonna bring back the first dominion. He said, now why do you cry aloud? Is there no king in thee? Ain't David buried in Zion? Ain't David buried in Jerusalem? So you say, what are you talking about? Let me read it right quick. Shed some light on it. I'm in Isaiah 66. Let me tell you right here. Verse 5. 66 and 5. Hear the word of the Lord, ye that tremble at his word. Your brethren that hated you, that cast you out for my name's sake, said, let the Lord be glorified, but he shall appear to your joy, and they shall be ashamed. So here you go. This is the Lord of hosts. A voice of noise from the city, a voice from the temple. That's what David is, buried in. A voice of the Lord that rendered recompense to his enemies before she travailed. This before he resurrected all our forefathers in Ezekiel 37. Before she travailed, she brought forth. Before her pains came, she was delivered of a man child. That's David. And Micah saying the same thing over here in verse 8, chapter 4, verse 8 of Micah. And thou, tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, under thee shall it come, even the first dominion, David. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Zion. Then he tells you in verse 9. Now, why do you cry aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is David not buried there? And then he's telling you, am I Michael? I'm your counselor. Says, is the counsel perished? No, we can't die. You're an eternal being. For pains that take you to Genesis 66, Isaiah 66. For pains have taken thee as a woman in travail. Be in pain and labor, bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thy enemies. Now also many nations are gathered against thee that say, let her be defiled, and let our eyes look upon Zion. But they know not the thoughts of the Lord, neither understand they his counsel, for he shall gather them as the sheaves into the floor. Arise, thrash, O daughter of Zion, for I will make thine horn of David iron, and I will make thy hooves brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord, and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. So this is my last chapter that I want to shine a light on 13. Micah 4 and 13. Arise, thrash, O daughter of Zion, for I will make thine horn iron, and I will make thy hooves brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people. So what is he talking about? I told you Ezekiel 37, he's going to resurrect all our forefathers. And then he tells us that it's an exceedingly great army. And then the precept that goes along with what I just read in Micah about they're going to beat them, they're going to beat many nations in the pieces, right? Let's look at, Joel chapter 2. It's the army in Ezekiel 37. Blow your trumpet in Zion. Sound alarm in my holy mountain, and let all the inhabitants of the land tremble. So why they going to tremble? For the day of the Lord cometh, for it is nigh at hand, a day of darkness, of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountain, a great people, strong, that have not ever been in the light, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. This is the army that he resurrected in Ezekiel 37. A fire devoured before them, and behind them a flame burning. And the land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yea, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on top of mountains shall they leap. Like the noise of a flame of fire that devour the stubble, as the strong people set in battle array. Before their eyes, before their face, the people shall be much pain. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the walls like men of war, and they shall march every one on his ways, and they shall not break their ranks. Neither shall one thrust another, and they shall walk every one in his path. And when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. And they shall run to and fro in the city. They shall run upon the walls. They shall climb up upon the houses, and they shall enter in at the windows like a thief. So we see right, and then here go your answer to Ezekiel 37, verse 10. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. So this is what he's talking about in Micah, where he's going to beat all the nations into pieces because he done resurrected them, and they just like the Lord. They're just like the angel of the Lord. Let me read that. I ain't going to leave you hanging. So, chapter 12 of Zechariah. All I'm talking about the same thing. He says, verse 6, in that day, the same day in Joel, will I make the governors, kings of Judah, like a heath of fire among the wood, like a torch of fire in a sheaf. They shall devour, same, breaking pieces, same thing. They shall devour all the people round about, the right hand and the left hand, and Jerusalem shall be inhabited again in her own place in Jerusalem. The Lord also shall say the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. Here go the verse right here. In that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be at David, and the house of David. That's all the kings. That in First and Second Kings, the First and Second Chronicles, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. That's why they beating and breaking everything in pieces. They got these. They just like the angels is now. They don't see they glorified bodies, which was already promised to them. They knew that before they passed. That if they did right, kept the law, that the Most High was going to bring them back, and they was going to rule. Okay, any comments on that? Anybody got any comments? Okay, I'm gonna play this right here and then we'll close out.
She had them rage and hiss, fire from her tongue. She equipped with a blazing glare. Let them boys in the smoke. The sun don't touch her. She too hot, scorching, burnt from all ways. Them devils told her how to cook her soul. Nowadays, they say she's pretty for a dark girl. like it's a compliment, smothered in Sarah Vaughtman's hips. Miley Cyrus call it a crop now. Black girl be too permeated. You see us everywhere, but our mouths ain't got no filter if you can't hold water. Black girl be in the itty bitty bikini bikini showing out they flinging us now. She got child support superpower singing. I wish she would give us. One of these days, black girl be so powerful, her hair will stay pressed after being underwater. Can't put no seasoning on that. Her tongue too crispy, and she got flavor. Ain't that how them mulatto babies is made? Peach be so juicy, you gotta tell her hair ain't good. Condition them so that hair ain't dry. Bleaching our skin so that we can be white enough. Photoshopping our bodies so that we can be photogenic enough. Post-traumatic syndrome got us forgetting about ourselves. We so potent, NAACP had to remind us, white girl wanna be black. Ask Rachel, black girl, free yourself. And when you fly, tell them, Fannie Lou Hamer sent you. Tell them, you are your own queen. Tell them, your brown sugar maple syrup can be bought off shelves. Tell them, dark don't mean dirty. Nappy don't mean nasty. Loud don't mean ratchet. Bold don't mean problematic. They say the blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. But at these times, the blacker the baby, the longer the noose. Our sons don't need sunscreen. They run from protection. They get their vitamin D when they are 4 hours face down on the ground. They want to keep us uneducated. File us in Section 8. Then when we start to assimilate, we start talking like we got some sense, start walking like we learned we can run for president now, start protesting because we stand up for our rights. We have a purpose here. You can't take that away. You can't until our sons no more. You can't 16th Street Baptist Church burn our bodies no more. You can't walk up in the church and shoot us in prayer no more. You can't kill us in the jail cell and call it suicide no more. This ain't open season. Black girl, you are brick, you are mortar, you are design, you are stealing more than just measurements. Raise your head. This black girl ain't got no blues tonight. You be you in your blue hue, beautiful as you want to be. Dark eyes, thick thighs. We don't need to apologize.
Okay.
Okay.
Was that song? Okay. Say shalom on that. We'll see y'all. We'll be on Clubhouse tomorrow at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So non-Messianic dialogue. Okay. Shalom.
Shalom.
Shalom.